Welcome back to Sippy Cup Shenanigans. I am Taylor Palmer.
And I'm Katherine Jensen. Thanks for joining us. And thanks to those who joined us for our first episode last week. This is our second episode. And today we're going to be talking about postpartum and our postpartum experiences. And honestly, postpartum is like a huge topic. We could honestly do a whole podcast
Probably
dedicated to postpartum.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're obviously not going to cover everything in this episode.
No.
Not even close.
No. We'll just put like a tiny little dent in it.
Yeah. We're just a little something. But yeah, I am super passionate about postpartum. And so I'm excited to talk about this today.
No. You helped me through my postpartum so much. So,
well, so did you.
I know, but it just is, it's crazy how much of an experience it is as a whole. And I mean, everybody's experiences are so different and it's hard to even touch on just like the small things.
So true. So we're going to share kind of a brief, I don't know if summary is the right word, of our postpartum stories and experiences. And then we'll get into some questions. Taylor said I had to start first because I had a baby first. So
you go first. You experienced it first. That's how this works.
So I was living in Utah when I got pregnant. And then we moved to Naperville, Illinois, mid-pregnancy, mid-COVID, just in the thick of it. And I had Hillam just a few months after we moved to Illinois. Hillam is my first. And it was a wild ride. I will say that. We didn't have any family nearby. We didn't know many people. Especially since it was COVID, we hadn't had the opportunity to meet many people yet. So we were kind of on our own, and that's a whole thing that added another layer of difficulty to the postpartum experience. Like those first few weeks, luckily we were able to have my mom fly in for a little bit, and then my mother-in-law flew in for a little bit and helped, and that was huge. But I remember every time someone would leave who came to visit, I would have a panic attack because I was like, wait, what am I going to do without you? Austin didn't have any paternity leave because he was super new to his company, but he was able to work from home for a couple of weeks. So that was nice. At least he was home for a little bit. After having Hillam in the hospital, you're kind of in a daze a little bit. I don't know. And you're kind of running on adrenaline. And then we get home, and I mean, it kind of started to hit me in the hospital, right before we left. But it was when we got home, I think that night that it just all kind of hit me. And I was meltdown mode from there on out.
Yeah.
It was hard, but I also this is something I was thinking about, how you can have so many emotions at the same time. You can feel so grateful for this sweet, precious new baby that you have, and you can feel overwhelmed and lonely, and so I think that first little bit is juggling the ups and downs, the good and the bad, the highs and the lows. So that's just a little bit about my postpartum experience. We'll get more into it, but why don't you share a little bit?
Okay. I did not have my first baby during COVID. It was after, but we did actually still have to wear masks in the hospital, and I was tested for COVID in the hospital. I thought that was very unfair. That started a little bit of the, I got tested and they're like, well, if you have COVID, we expect your husband does, but if he doesn't, then, or if you don't, he doesn't, however that is. I was like, what? The one test that he could do in here, and he doesn't have to
Yeah.
do it. It's like the one thing. I was like,
That's not
but no,
fair.
I know. So I got pregnant. We were living in LA. My husband was doing his master's. He was getting his master's degree at the time, and then we moved to San Diego after she was born. So that was kind of crazy. So we had Everly, North LA, in a hospital, and I remember throughout the whole pregnancy, I would talk to you about all the things. I had absolutely no idea. I would call Catherine just for reference and ask her about all these things. And I remember saying to you things like, "Now I know about postpartum depression and people talk about it, so I know I'm going to experience these things." And I feel like I said it so like,
Casually.
yeah, and like I knew what I was talking about. And I can't believe you were so chill about it because honestly, I look back on that, I'm like, what in the world? Like, I thought, I just thought it was like, okay, I'm going to mentally prepare myself. I'm probably going to feel a bit sad or this, that, the other.
Yeah.
And we had Everly, and I am very much not the person who, like, I was so excited to have her. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It was great, and I love her so much, and she's like my entire world.
Yeah.
But I think it all started too where I feel like there's some expectations of how women should feel. And
Mhm.
I didn't have all those feelings, which added on to some like I didn't have postpartum depression, but like baby blues
Yeah.
and kind of like I don't know, anxiety type things after having
Yeah.
her. I wasn't the one to like cry, you know? Like I had Everly, I wasn't crying. I was kind of
Yeah.
just like in shock. It was like all the emotions of like, oh my gosh, I have a kid. And then I was in pain. I didn't realize how much pain it was going to have. I had an episiotomy, for reference for everybody. And I also didn't know anything about that. So I
Yeah.
think the entirety of this is there's so many things that I didn't know.
Yeah.
If I could go back, I would try and educate myself more. I would say, please don't do an episiotomy.
Yeah.
I would rather not do that. I think that also added to like the healing process afterwards. So I was in a lot of pain. I wasn't moving very well. We brought Everly home from LA, drove her down to San Diego after the hospital. So there wasn't really a rest period. And like you, that first night, I remember my husband going, taking a shower, and coming out, and I was sobbing, just like, what have we done? Oh my gosh. And those aren't thoughts that you like want to have because you're like so excited you have a new baby and it's just
Exactly.
like the greatest thing ever. And like what you're saying, you can have the good with the bad. So you're excited, but it was just like so overwhelming. Um, Family wasn't living in town yet. They are now. But my mom had come to town. She was helping, um, which was amazing. But there was just a lot of emotions. Dwayne had similarly just started a job and he wasn't able to work from home. So Everly was born on a Thursday. He started work on Monday. So there was no time in between. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
emotions. I think I just expected it to be like, oh, we're not going to sleep very well, but it's fine. But I didn't realize after having her just the huge hormonal shift that my body was going to be going through, the physical pain that I was going to be having. It was just an eye opener. And I do go back and think about how I talked to you about being like, oh, I know. And I'm like, what? What? You should have been like, Taylor, stop talking. Okay. You don't know
No,
anything.
no.
But it's hard because you can't, because, no, the people who haven't been through that before, they don't know. So what are you supposed to say? You don't want to be like, I think you just have to experience it for yourself because everyone's going to
Yeah.
experience it differently.
It's so true. And it's so hard to like explain or convey. And like you said, you just like can't really know until you're in it,
Mm-hmm.
until you're experiencing it. And I remember talking to my therapist after I had Hillam and I was like so mad. I was just mad. I was like, why did no one tell me it was this hard? Like, why didn't anyone like
For
explain this
sure.
to me? And just being like, well, there's a few reasons for that. it's just hard to explain, and it's just hard to know until you go through it. Everyone has a different experience, so
Yeah.
you can't be like, this is what you're gonna go through,
Mhm.
because it might
Like
not be.
like I said, like I think you were upset. I was crying after having her so much, mind you. I cried off and on for days. Um, but I know people that didn't do that,
Yeah,
and it was totally
exactly.
fine. And
Yeah.
so I think it's just different, and your hormones, everyone's hormones are different, and how you react is different. And like I said, so many people have the baby and it's this like rush of emotions and they cry happy tears and they're so excited. And I didn't have that. I did feel very guilty. There was a lot of mom guilt there. I was like, should I be crying? Should I be feeling this certain way? And I was like very disassociated from it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember wanting to hold her after she was born and being like so excited, but also like I was super thirsty and I really wanted water. Like all I
Yeah.
wanted was water, and I feel so guilty that
Yeah.
all I wanted was water, and I just
You're like,
birthed
why am I
my
thinking
baby.
about water right now? Like,
Oh, it was just it was
but because you need it.
it was terrible. I did there was a lot of guilty feelings there. So, um, hormones are a
Mm-hmm.
big thing, but we can move on
Okay.
um to some
So,
questions.
yeah, let's get to some questions.
So, what surprised you most about your postpartum experience?
Okay, like I said, I was extremely unprepared. At least I felt very unprepared for postpartum. So I would say everything was surprising to me. Literally everything about postpartum. I was like, what? Like the mental aspect, the physical, the newborn care, the sleep deprivation, like literally everything. I was like, what? Which, yeah, it's not like I didn't hear about it. Like I didn't, it's not like I didn't hear people talk about what happens after you have a baby, but it still was just like, what? That happened to me, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but I think, well, I keep thinking about two of the biggest things that surprised
Mhm.
me. And one is exactly what you were talking about, which is um I think that the bonding experience with my baby, with Hillam, I I expected to have it feel like love at first sight, right? And just this overwhelming connection and bond
Mhm.
just immediately. And this feeling I had never felt before, and rainbows and butterflies
Mhm.
and harps playing in the
Yeah.
background and just
Yes.
like all the things. And yeah, like when I had him and they handed him to me, I was in awe, and I was like, wow, like look at this beautiful perfect baby. And I was like, he really is perfect, and I can't believe he's here. And I was like in awe, but I did not feel that immediate connection
Mhm.
or bond, kind of like you were saying. I didn't have the tears of joy. I didn't, and pretty much immediately felt guilty for that.
Mhm.
Like, what's
'Cause
wrong with me?
but do you I feel like there's an almost an expectation, especially with do you not feel like with social media almost that like that is how it is
Oh yeah.
and that is
And
how it should be?
yeah, and then like I think in movies and TV
Mhm.
shows, they say things like nothing compares to that moment you
Mhm.
hold your baby for the first time.
Yeah.
And for some people, like you were saying, it might be that
Yeah.
way. Um so it's not like that's wrong necessarily, but
Mhm.
it's not everybody's experience. But you do
Exactly.
have that expectation of like that's just how it is,
Yeah.
you know? Like that's just how it should be. So then when it's not, it's like something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
But it's not. It and
Mhm.
um I did feel a lot of guilt about that for forever. But something that helped me was I listened to a podcast
Mhm.
actually that talked about like bonding with your baby. And she talked about how she didn't have that immediate connection. And it was something that built over time. And
Mhm.
how, there are some of those love stories that like, it is love at first sight. And there's some of those love stories where it takes time to grow and develop, but it doesn't mean it's any less of a connection, or
Yeah.
any less loving. And so that really helped me. And of course, like as time went on, I felt
Mhm.
that love and connection grow. It did take time, but obviously I'm obsessed with him now and love him. And um so yeah, that was a big surprise for me. And
Yeah.
then um also just the emotions, I guess, the moods. I once again expected to just feel so happy because this is all I've ever wanted is to be a mom,
Mhm.
and I finally have it, and so I just expected to be super happy.
Yeah.
Which and I just didn't expect the overwhelming, yeah, like hormonal shift, mood changes, like all of those things. And it took me like having my second haze to kind of realize what my body does postpartum, which is like I have pretty well, I mean, I don't have any, I can't compare it to someone else because I don't know. But for me, it feels pretty like severe baby blues where I just like feel this like dark cloud
Mhm.
kind of over me for a few weeks. And I just feel like really emotional, really anxious, really lonely. Like I can't stand to like be alone in a
Yeah.
room. Which like now I'm like I would give anything to be alone in a room, right? Just me alone
Oh,
in a room.
nice.
But like postpartum, I'm like I just have like this sinking deep feeling of loneliness for whatever
Mhm.
reason, just like whatever my hormones
Yeah.
are doing. And it took me like, oh, this is just like kind of what my brain and my body does postpartum. And the second time around, I could, when it's that kind of started lifting and I started like feeling more like myself, I was like, oh, okay, like my body just needs like that time.
Mhm.
But I didn't know that, especially with my first. So I was just like, something's wrong with me,
No.
like I I shouldn't feel this way. Anyway,
Yeah.
so those that was a big surprise. So
Well, have you seen I've seen people talk about how postpartum, like, because 'cause you're pregnant, it's like you're taking a bunch of, birth control pills every single
oh
day. It's like that, and then all of a
yeah.
sudden, you stop, and
Yep.
that's like a huge hormone shift.
Oh yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I didn't realize that either. I would say honestly, I would say that I was very similar to you in both things, that the
Yeah.
being overly I saw someone, again, post something about there's nothing that beats the high of right after having your baby.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh." I
Oh.
mean, yeah, but I just don't it is I think you said, like, I think that it's probably gonna be something I feel guilty about for
Yeah.
a long time. Uh, I know that I shouldn't, and that's just
Right.
how I am, but it's just
Logically, yeah.
yeah, just something I carry. And then the same thing. Afterwards, I had baby blues. It was better with Riley.
Mhm.
Um, I think that in my head, I was like, "Okay, I know how this goes."
Yeah.
But it definitely made me realize that having kids it's it can be rough. Mentally for me, I've learned a lot about myself.
Yeah.
After having Everly, I learned that just hormonally, I would get upset really fast. Um,
Mhm.
Not like before, and I wouldn't want to talk about anything. So that was a problem relationship wise
Yeah.
that became a thing from I think hormones because that's not normally how I would be.
Right.
So we learned how to work through that, which I think was good. I think that in the end, like the that made a stronger relationship for my husband and I, and we learned how
Yeah.
to work through things, but that wasn't something I was expecting.
Yeah.
Um, you already have late nights and all these things, but I like hormonal like anger. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it
The
was like a
rage.
postpartum. I wouldn't say it was fully
Not
postpartum
quite
rage,
there.
but I would get pretty upset. And so working through that, that was something that I wasn't quite expecting.
Yeah.
That was rough. So, but yeah,
Well,
very
you
similar.
kind of answered the next question, which is how did your relationship with your partner change? But
Oh,
if you have anything else to add
no,
to
I
that.
think it just got stronger. I think that I've learned, I'm like, I'm glad that we had such a good foundation because
Mhm.
adding kids can be so difficult just for our personal relationship. Knowing that we had a strong foundation helped to continue on, especially with the arguments and it was
Yeah.
just a lot of like bickering because you're
Yeah.
both running on no sleep and just one thing leads to another and you're just like, I'm mad at you about the silliest things that
Yeah.
don't matter. um and just
Neither of you are your best selves.
no, but I would leave. Like there were days where like I wouldn't talk to him for like a day into the next, and then I would break down just crying like, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I did this, like I just want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't know how to express myself, I'm frustrated. um but we worked through it and it was a lot easier this time around. He knew what to expect with me. I really worked to just make sure that if I was upset that I would get through it quicker and I'd be like, talk about it right away. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, I
rather than
know I need
hold
to talk about it.
it.
So that was an issue that kind of resolved. Um, yeah, I think that it just strengthened us overall. How about you?
Eventually.
Well,
Yes, eventually.
us
Yeah,
eventually too. It wasn't
for
like
sure. Immediately.
we fought for 1 week and now we're the greatest couple in the world. No.
What?
We definitely still argue.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Um,
bicker, I guess. Not, I don't say we would fully argue.
well, yeah, I think like you were saying, I don't know, adding a kid into the mix is just like changes the dynamics so much and like forces you to just like communicate more
Yeah.
and like yeah face things rather than like maybe sweeping them under the rug or like things would come up that we would like maybe disagree on how to approach something with like handling something with Hillam, like we would disagree on like
Oh,
what
that
do we do
still
in this.
happens.
Yeah, oh of course it will always happen as long as we have kids,
Yeah.
yes. But yeah, that was like new. It's like, well, I think we should do it this way. Well, I think we should do it this way. And like finding that common ground and also like realizing you're not like you're on the same team, you know, like trying to like come together. You both have the same purpose and goal, which is to love and take care of this baby.
Mhm.
But it's hard. It's just hard. But yeah, I think overall, like we were able to um learn how to communicate better. I mean, obviously we're still working on it, always will.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but but then you also like share that love for
Yeah.
this human, right? So that brings you closer
Mhm.
and yeah, but it's definitely an ongoing learning
Oh,
experience
yeah.
and challenge.
Yeah, I would agree. But you're right, it does bring you closer together with the, like, caring for your child together and
Yeah,
loving, and it new experiences that you get to share. I think
for
that's
sure.
special. Okay, I'm looking at the next question. What are some physical challenges you faced? Love this question.
Yeah. Once again, we could do a whole episode on the physical changes of postpartum.
There's a
Um,
lot.
yeah, I mean, I tore with my first and my second fairly significantly. So that was like a hard recovery. I ended up going to pelvic floor physical therapy. The reason I was referred is because it was still painful to have sex like 3 months
Oh.
postpartum. And I actually, yeah, like it was months and months and months that like I was just
Ah.
like, this is so painful. Like, anyway, so my
Oh, that's the
doctor referred
worst.
me to pelvic floor physical therapy, which saved me. And so I recommend that to
Yeah.
anyone and everyone who can do that. I didn't realize the process of healing is not just 6 weeks, right? It's like years.
Uh-huh.
But I expected to be like
Like
6
fully
weeks, I'm
ready.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Back to
I'm
normal.
healed, back to normal, yeah. And, but then I would talk to, like, my doctor or my physical therapist, and they'd be like, "No, like, more realistically, give yourself at least a year
Yeah.
to heal and regain strength and get back to those all those activities
Yeah.
and things you were doing before." Um,
But
so
that's
yeah,
like that's like one of those things that is also like like told to women, right? Like
oh,
you
yeah.
should bounce back. 6 weeks, you should
Yeah.
bounce back. You should be able to do this, that, the other. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like
Yeah,
that's
that's not
it took you
realistic.
9 months
Yeah,
to like have this
grow
baby.
this
Your body
baby.
was growing and now you're like, oh, 6 weeks and your body's back to normal.
Yeah,
What?
no, no.
So
Yeah, so, yeah, those were definitely the physical challenges some of the physical challenges that I faced. I do feel like my recovery was a little bit quicker with my second, um, but I also gave myself more time to rest and recover, and like I took it more seriously. I tried to, as much as I could, be like, okay, I'm going to treat this like a major surgery, which it
yeah.
basically is, you know, like,
Yeah.
and especially if you've had like a C-section, like that is a major surgery.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I didn't have a C-section, but I'm just saying any form of birth is
Yeah.
major to your body.
Yeah.
And so trying to treat it like you really need to let your body heal and rest. And luckily, with the help of my husband and family, I was able to like prioritize that more.
Yeah.
Um, and like kind of treating it like I was on bed rest for a couple of weeks and then just really slowly easing back into things. So I think that helped. And once again, just having more like realistic expectations and um, knowing what I was going to be facing a little bit more and how to take better care of my body. Yeah, what
Yeah.
would you say about the physical challenges?
No, I would say similar. I think I had relatively easy births both times around. I would count myself lucky. So I feel happy about that. I do, like I said earlier, I did not realize what an episiotomy was, what that entailed.
Yeah.
So I think healing from that uh, wasn't super fun. It definitely was, I think, a longer healing process. It healed fine. Everything
Yeah.
healed fine. I, I didn't have to do much afterwards. I will say, if we're gonna I'm just gonna be totally real. One of the worst things for me, and this is just out there for the universe, but
Yeah.
women go through this, so I'm just gonna say, was the hemorrhoids after you have a kid
Oh,
was the like that was the
unreal.
worst. I had
Unreal.
that was something I had absolutely no idea about. I was like,
Same.
oh, okay. I mean, it makes sense. You're pushing out a baby. Like, why would that not happen? But I would say that that was probably one of the worst healing aspects. And for me, my body has to this day honestly still not really recovered from that. So uh that's one of the worst things.
So painful.
Yeah, it was not fun. I mean, there's a lot that we could go into in that realm that we don't need to, but I mean, that is something that nobody talked about, right?
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean,
Like even now we're like, do we talk about this? Like which
hemorrhoids are
yes,
a
we need
thing.
to. Someone needs to.
Hemorrhoids are a thing. And then, do I just say it? I'll just say it. After you have a kid, you they expect you to have your first pee in the hospital. Like that's all it was. I thought you had to go both in the hospital before you could leave, but
Yeah.
you just have to pee.
Yeah.
So
Same.
you're
I know. I
you're
had that in my mind too.
well,
Like
I was panicking.
I can't leave the hospital until I poop.
Yeah, no, and I was panicked about that. And they're like, "Oh no, no, you're good." So they send you home I would say physically, that's probably like I had an epidural. So those who don't, that's amazing, and like that's amazing. Um Anybody who gives birth is amazing
Yes, yes.
in any which way,
Let's make
whatever.
that clear. Yeah.
Whenever a baby comes out of your body, you're amazing. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how it comes out. But so I had an epidural, so I didn't feel necessarily him coming out, or Everly or Riley coming out. I was numb. But the postpartum bathroom experience is a
Yeah.
whole different story
Yeah.
after you have hemorrhoids. And it's not fun. And I would say actually physically that was probably the worst part of
Part
healing.
for you.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. Either time. Honestly, I think with Everly it wasn't good, and with every time I'm talking with you, I keep thinking I'm like Hillam. Nope, my son's name is Riley. Uh Riley. I yeah, that was terrible as well. So that physically was probably the worst. But
Yeah.
like you, the second time around, I gave myself more time to heal, more time to lay down, um, which was nice. But yeah, the physical, I didn't realize a lot of things. But yeah, I'd say that the hemorrhoids were the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't experience that as much, surprisingly, with my first, but more so with my
Really?
second. Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Even during pregnancy, I got hemorrhoids during pregnancy. And I was like, "Oh man, if I already have hemorrhoids before giving birth, like come on." So, yeah, I feel you there. It's rough.
That,
Yeah.
yeah. I would say that's one things that I've talked to you about too, where I'm like, nope, nobody wants to go there. And
Yeah.
I'm going there because
Yep.
nobody talks about it. And I had absolutely no idea. It was terrible.
Okay, next question. Did you experience postpartum depression or anxiety?
I, yes, yes. I'm going to say yes, but in a different way. I wouldn't go as far as saying it was like postpartum. I didn't have postpartum depression. I would say I had baby blues.
Okay.
Um, I was upset, but I do think I don't know if I can classify it as postpartum anxiety. As you know, but I can tell everyone, I've been an anxious person for most my entire life, like on a more extreme level. Um, Not the worst that it can be, but I've been fairly anxious. I worked really hard on myself and got to this point of just doing all the things and feeling like I hadn't overcome everything, but I was in a good place. And then I had Everly, and it kind of all just came flooding back in.
Mm,
And it was like, okay, now I have to work on all these things that I've done and I've worked on before. And it was like, I was fine. I don't understand what happened. And I think it was just all the hormones, and it got worse. So
yeah.
um it was rough. I was trying to get back out there and do things with her, and I found myself just going back to my old like anxious ways of just I don't know, I would go and meet up with people and just be like nervous the whole time, and I'm sure people could see, or I was putting on a face, I don't know, but it made it hard just to go out and even just be outside and do things. It was really good for me mentally, and I would leave and I'd feel so much better.
Yeah.
But just being social, that was rough. I ended up seeing somebody, um, but it wasn't like normal therapy. My husband's like whatever it was through, it was not normal, and I wish I still should see like an actual therapist, and I would like to, because I think that I don't think mentally, um, I have recovered from that, and I would like to. So I'm still in a place of like I'm not where I was.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a long process.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it definitely brought me back, which was rough. I felt really proud of myself, and I do still because I have to work through it, more frequently now, but it's not fun having to kind of go back to that place and
Yeah.
work through things that I felt like I had already overcome. So,
Yeah. Especially when, like you said, you're like, wait, I thought had already made
yeah.
progress on this. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you're
that's
taking
where,
steps
yeah,
backwards. But
exactly. So that was, I think that was one of the more rough things. I wouldn't say I had postpartum depression. I was feeling really lonely, but that I think probably has to do with other things other than like depression and anxiety, which we'll probably go into later. So um, I'll leave that for now. But yeah,
yeah.
lonely. I was hanging out with my mom all the time. So I was
Yeah.
sad about some things, but I wouldn't classify it as postpartum depression. But you want to touch on that?
Yeah. So with my first, like I said, I had those like really intense baby blues, which did lead to postpartum depression. And I think probably a big part of that was I was feeling all those emotions and those normal like hormonal changes and
Mm-hmm.
mood shifts and things, but I was adding a lot of shame and guilt to it, which just like sent me deeper into depression and
Yeah.
sadness. So I think that was a part of it. Like I said, I didn't have like any family nearby, and so I think that added to it. So I did get I would well in the moment I said I was like I don't think it's depression, like I think I'm just sad, I don't know, but
Yeah.
then it's like once I was kind of um out of it, looking back I was like whoa, like
Yeah.
that was intense. And then with my second, I like I said, I experienced those like baby blues again. But I was able to, I think, knowing that this is normal, give myself time, I think that helped. I was also um, taking an antidepressant at that point, a very low dose, like throughout my pregnancy, but I think that probably helped stabilize
Yeah.
me a little bit. Um, and yeah, the family support and things like that. Um, so luckily, I didn't experience that intense postpartum depression the second time around like I did the first.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Can I ask? I'm going to add a question
yeah.
to this because I was thinking about this. Um, did you experience, I feel like resentment at
Oh
all?
yeah,
Is that something that, because I feel like and I know I've talked to my mom about it and other moms, but um, that, my husband helps so much and he truly does so much, but there was like this resentment that I felt afterwards, where it was like, you get to leave the house and
yeah,
like you're not around the crying,
yeah.
and you don't have to think about what we need to get for her, or how many poops she's done today, or peas,
Yeah.
or how many hours has it been since she's eaten. Yeah, is that
Oh,
something that you
absolutely. I definitely, bless my husband, so felt that resentment deeply, especially with the first and in the beginning. Yeah, I was nursing, I had to be the one to get up and for the nighttime feeds. um my first wouldn't take a bottle, so I literally was the only one who could feed him. And yeah, feeling like I couldn't leave, I couldn't
hmm
in like I couldn't enjoy the hobbies that I did before,
yeah,
whereas like my husband could still get on and game with his friends, or
yeah,
go out if you wanted to. And so yeah, I definitely relate to that, those
yeah,
feelings of resentment, not like you said, not that they are doing anything wrong,
exactly, exactly.
but just that just the situation,
It's the situation. It's how it happens, and I feel like that led to some of my like feeling of loneliness
yeah,
and being at home, and kind of some of that heaviness on me, um not because of him or anything that he did,
Yeah.
just the situation. Um, which I feel like it's been a little bit better this time around. I don't know if that is like that for you, but
Yes.
this time I'm like, okay,
Yes.
I know how this goes, and this is I'm okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely. There's just one thing I was going to add,
yeah, please do.
thinking about um my postpartum depression and
Hmm.
like when I knew I needed to get help
Yeah,
or like and so it took me a while. I remember, and this is like kind of heavy, but I remember a very specific day when I just felt like things got to be too much. I called Austin, he was at work, my husband, and just broke down, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I'm so overwhelmed with these feelings. And I remember thinking, I don't think I said this out loud to him, but I remember thinking, if this is how I'm going to feel, I don't want to live. Like,
oh,
I don't want to live with this feeling. And that's when I knew, and I was like, I need
that's
to get
scary.
help. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Like,
scary thought to
I
have.
need more help.
Yeah,
And that's when I like went back to my doctor and I was like, these are thoughts and feelings that I'm having. And that's when I got on some medication and like just got more support and more help. And like I like looking back, I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have let it get to that point before
yeah, but it's
um
hard to
getting
know,
more help,
right?
but it's hard to know. So
Yeah. I think the good thing is that you recognized it when you had that feeling instead of
yeah.
letting it go any even further. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I did you get those like questionnaires when
Yes.
Hillam would go in? Did you
Yes.
ever feel like because I feel like other people have to feel this. Because I talked about this with my husband a couple weeks ago. I was like, they give you that questionnaire and it's like to see if you have postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, well, I kind of feel that, but I'm not going to
Yeah.
put that because I don't want them to think that I'm depressed.
Right, right. Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of goes along with like people expecting us to just bounce back and be okay, even though your body,
Yeah.
all these hormones that we really don't know how to deal with unless we have the proper help, because every woman experiences it so differently. So
Yeah.
when you're expected to be like, no, I'm fine, I go into those questionnaires being like, well, I should be fine. I don't want to like
Right.
make them think that
I
something's
yeah.
wrong with me.
Yeah, you're
I'm
like, I don't want to
okay.
fail this quiz.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. So I feel like that's hard. So I'm kind of going back. I think that it's great that you recognize those things and that you knew it was time to go see somebody, because oftentimes I think that you can people can feel like I'm feeling this, but I shouldn't. So I just need to hide this and keep
Yeah.
going on like it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Um,
I don't want to admit to myself or other people that I'm
mhm.
struggling this
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
yeah. But you should, and everybody experiences things differently, and I think it's just important that, people know that not everyone is just going to bounce back
Yeah.
immediately. Everybody experiences things differently, and that just because you may think it's not right doesn't mean that it's not valid, and
Right.
that, someone else could be feeling the exact same way that you are.
Yeah.
You just don't know. Because I don't know. It can be lonely. It can be
Yeah.
lonely.
For sure.
Um, and people just need to know that.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. You
It
said it
is.
really well. You said it really well that, your feelings are valid.
Yeah. And and like in the same breath, like it's okay to feel those things, but it's also like I said, it's also okay to seek help, and you don't have to be like, I'm stuck with these feelings forever
Yeah.
or anything like, like they, yeah. So if I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I've always had a hard time asking for help. I don't,
Yeah.
I would feel embarrassed almost like, oh, something's wrong with me. I have to do this.
Hmm.
Like, I don't want people to know. No, that's not it.
Yeah.
Like, ask for help, because just because someone else isn't doesn't mean that you I don't know. Someone else is probably going through different struggles and you just don't know it.
Yeah.
And if you need help, you can get help. It's completely normal.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. That's something that I've had a hard time uh, accepting for myself.
Yeah.
So I know that has to be similar for other people, but
For
just
sure.
know that it's normal and
Yeah.
everyone does it.
Yeah.
I I think therapy for me was everything I needed, and I still wish that I could go back and do more. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, postpartum's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's. I
It's
mean,
a roller coaster.
we didn't even touch on most of the
I
stuff, and
know.
we've
I'm
come
like,
to
oh
like the
man.
end of this, and like
We're like, yeah,
there's a
there's still
lot more.
so much we could talk about, which I'm sure we will cover over future episodes.
Absolutely.
But just yeah, it's a lot. And if you are in the thick of postpartum, if you're about to have a baby, like any of those things, just know that we are rooting for you and we're here for you, and you are doing an amazing, incredible job.
Absolutely. Yes. Everything you just said and more. Like it's just you said it really perfectly.
I don't know about that, but
No, you did. You're not alone.
yeah.
It can feel like you are at times, and you're not. And
Yeah.
uh, there's resources.
Yeah, you can always reach out to us.
We're here.
um,
We'd
yeah,
love to answer questions.
yes.
Not that we're experts
No,
by any means.
no, but or we'll put in the show notes. There's postpartum helplines
Mhm.
that you can call if you don't feel like you have someone else in your life you can talk to. Anyways, we are all here to support each other. So
Exactly. That's what
we love you.
motherhood is. It's a community in and of itself. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Let us know your thoughts. And if you guys have any questions, if you have anything else about postpartum that you want to add that maybe in future episodes we can touch on.
Yeah. It's a
Anything else you want to
broad
add, Taylor?
topic. No, postpartum's a broad topic. I would
Yeah.
love to, if anybody has questions or things that they want to add. There's so many things that we didn't touch on. So,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear back, love feedback, and we're
Yes.
just happy to be able to chat with each other and do this every week. I'm
Yeah.
glad
We'll see
that,
you guys next week.
yeah.
Bye.
Bye.